Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast which we disassemble a film from the Marvel Cinematic Universe into 1-minute segments and then examine it in obsessive and occasionally hilarious detail. I'm Kyle Olson from the Swashbuckling Ladies Debate Society podcast.
Hey, and I'm Rob Cabasco, and Kyle.
Yeah.
Gases that glow.
Ooh, neon. I'm out. That's all I got.
So neon, okay, and neon, do you know what neon's natural light is? The natural color?
I don't.
It's actually red.
Oh.
Now,
okay.
there are other gases that do emit glows, obviously in varying levels of intensity and paleness. Helium actually does have a pale yellow glow. So it has to, obviously it's quantity, all of this. There's mercury vapor that emits a blue light. Argon is also blue. And sodium vapor is yellow.
Yellow, yeah. We've seen sodium lights a lot.
Exactly. The majority of neon signs, as you immediately thought, everyone thinks of neon. Those contain either neon gas or actually a mixture of neon and mercury vapor. Meaning, like older neon lights, beautiful, dangerous.
When I was I guess I was a teenager, my aunt, who's like the youngest of that family, so she was probably in her mid-20s. She had an apartment right out of college with a friend of hers, and so I went over and visited, and they had made a friend who was a neon artist, and so they had a custom neon thing, and it was, you're gonna love this, it was Brazil from the movie Brazil.
Oh, that's gotta be gorgeous.
The neon sign from the poster, and they had it on there, and I was like, that's amazing. So they had a real neon sign of Brazil hanging on the wall. And I was like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like, when I grow up, I hope I have something this cool.
I want a real neon sign.
Actually, a couple of years later, I asked her what happened to that. And she's like, oh, I don't even know. I was like, oh, come on.
Wait,
where'd it go? Yeah, like she doesn't even remember what happened to it after that. I was like, he made you a custom. Yeah,
I always wanted.
Shout out to Aunt Janet, who doesn't listen to the show, but
come on, Aunt Janet. There you go. I always wanted the original, not the original. I always thought it would have been great to have an actual neon sign of the Doctor Who logo when it was neon. End of Tom Baker, Peter Davis and Colin Baker. I always thought that would be cool too. But neon it fascinated, and it's an art form. I mean, it's still kind of popular actually. It's still used a lot of downtowns. They have sort of that style, and clearly had its heyday. If you've ever seen Cars, you'll know that neon.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
It's a sure thing. But anyway, why did I bring that up? There's a moment in this minute that I went, what lights up? It travels through a tube.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good question, because we're going to examine that here in minute 5 of Iron Man 2 from 2010, directed by Jon Favreau. We are still in the montage title sequence, and boy, oh boy, are we going to get into a bunch of names today. I haven't even count them, but boy, it took me a long time to look them up. So we're going to go through the names one by one as they go through, and then obviously whatever shots are going to happen here. I'm going to try and make things as interesting as we can, but boy, there's a lot of names to get through. So I'm sorry, by the time it gets to the end, you're not going to get a full in-depth thing, but that's what the internet is for. If you really want to find out more about them, they're out there.
We're going to give you the entertaining version of that.
That's right. So we start out with we see that's a monochrome monitor there. I think because we see green characters in Cyrillic going by. It's one of those things where like this is my American eccentric thing. It was sort of like, oh, of course, Russian programmers would program in Russian. But it's like one of the things I never really thought of that before. I'm like, oh yeah, everybody doesn't use HTML the same way. What? Oh, okay. That's not really, and I know nerds is not a programming language, but I like to do it for the wide spectrum appeal. So the first name we say pop up here is music by John Debney. And I have to say, I have really become a fan of John Debney since starting doing my research on the show. Like, I had really not known him as much more like composer, just one of those names that go by, like, I can't even think of any at the top of my head. Oh, one of those names that go by that you're like, yeah, okay, he's the music, great. But like he is a amazingly prolific talent. He has 214 composer credits on IMDb, and just like we talked about in the last show, he is also a second generation. So he is the son of Louis Debney, who is a longtime Disney producer and also a musician in his own right. Wow. So John has actually been writing music for Disney since the 80s. Some of the highlights include television. He did music for Fame, the television show. He did music for Star Trek Deep Space Nine, a little film you might have heard of called Hocus Pocus. Mm-hmm. The before the Pirates of the Caribbean pirate movie called Cutthroat Island. And Rob, he actually has another connection to a show that you just mentioned because he did the music for Doctor Who when it was on Fox.
Wait, the made-from-TV movie?
Yep.
In 1996 with Paul McGann?
Exactly.
Really?
That's right.
Oh, I missed that.
Never skip 8.
Yeah, no kidding.
But a couple other things that come through relevant to this conversation. He did, first of all, The Greatest Showman, Elf, and I know one of your personal favorite movies, The Passion of the Christ.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
if you want to know more about John Exper, if you want to hear a recent interview, Disney has a terrific, especially if you're a movie composer fan, they have a podcast called Four Scores. That's FOR, and they interview the composers about their music, and they play pieces of it too. And he actually was on a recent episode. So I recommend after you're done listening to this, go download Four Scores and download his episode and listen to him because he's actually a fascinating interview.
Now, I was going to say, now it's interesting you mentioned Passion of the Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That is a haunting score. That really, if you've never seen that movie, obviously for reasons otherwise, or, it is really amazing in terms of the storytelling and the themes and everything that he's put into that. Now, Elf is his first collaboration with Jon Favreau.
Correct.
He also, before that, though, actually right around that time, his entry into the comic book universe. Do you know what movie that is?
I don't.
So he did, even though we think of Danny Elfman, he did additional music for Spider-Man 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Because we talked about that on our Spider-Man episode back in the Road to Infinity days.
Right.
That there was a falling out between Sam Raimi and Danny Elfman. And so John Debney stepped in to do the rest of the music.
Exactly. Yeah, we totally mentioned that. And then there was also, he's also did Zathura again, his second time with Favreau, and then that's when he did additional work for Spider-Man 3, and he's just an amazing amount of stuff. Yeah. I love the story, like all of these guys. Like if you look back, Danny Elfman, Michael Giacchino, is that how you say it?
I think it's Giacchino.
Yeah. And then like one of my favorites, Jerry Goldsmith. The composers who can find these elements, all obviously the grandfather of all this is John Williams.
Yeah.
The people who can find themes and tie them together musically to help be that additional storyteller, it's fantastic. And already you hear it in these opening minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
This movie's got a theme.
Yeah, definitely. Marvel movie music gets a bad rap for not having recognizable themes, and I'm one of those people who say that. But I say, as I've been listening to the score, I have been really, really impressed with this. Much more, much as I liked Incredible Hulk, the music was not super standout-ish.
Except for Betty and Bruce.
Except for the Betty and Bruce, yeah, on the helicopter. But like I say, like even just from this, like this. A very different feel, like he has Russian without being like stereotypical here as we're seeing Ivan's Metamorphosis, which is the name of the track. But yeah, like I'm looking forward to talking about some of that stuff because he has some really, really good pieces as we move through. And actually, there's a music moment coming up in the next couple episodes that just blew my mind. So there's a little tease for the future. But let's move on because we have a lot of names to get through. But so the next thing we see on screen that's interesting is we actually learned that the person of the year for 2009 in the MCU was Iron Man. Okay.
Again, really wonderful sort of a collage here of just about 3 or 4 items. We see a Great Time magazine again, weathered and taped up there.
Yeah.
Also, already pointing to the theme that comes up in this movie is there's a front page of the Washington Times. You can't make out the full thing, but you know what it says is lunacy paralyzes Pentagon. and questions arise over outstanding contracts. They're already leading you into what the eventual storyline of this movie is going to be.
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna get into the government the exciting world of government oversight.
Exactly.
Next name that pops up is Dave Jordan. Dave Jordan is the music supervisor. He has 113 credits on the IMDb, and including most of the MCU. As I was going through his stuff, that was interesting that his big break year was in the year 2000. And he did 4 notable movies in that year. And the 4 movies he did the music supervising for were The Family Man, starring Nicolas Cage, in a family comedy.
Sort of, yeah.
Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah.
The Next Best Thing, which was when they were trying to position Madonna in a romantic comedy with Rupert Everett. Forgettable. And here's a movie you never thought we would ever bring up on any Marvel movie minute ever. Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps.
What? Wow.
Yeah. But I say that this was Dave Jordan's big year. He did all 4 of those movies in 1 year. And from then on, it was just like sky's the limit. Like he's done like amazing top 10, movies kind of thing. But like those were the dues that he paid.
The Clumps.
The Clumps.
And you
and once again, another tradition of numbers. Nutty Professor II. Nutty Professor 2.
Oh, wow. Seriously. Yeah, that's crazy.
Our next list of things is basically we could do the entire episode about this next name and never really even barely scratch the surface of how important she is to the MCU, and that's Victoria Alonso. I would say she is probably the most important person at Marvel who isn't named Kevin Feige. She has produced every Marvel movie in the MCU and all of the one-shots as well. She was born in Argentina. She's the executive vice president of production and is responsible for everything, that isn't Kevin Feige's job. And what I'm told is beloved. Like she is the grand dame of the MCU.
Interesting.
Yeah. Huh. And so like one of those unsung people, like she doesn't really care about the spotlight. She cares about getting her work done. And so, but that being said, she has some really good interviews on the YouTube that you can check out. She's a fascinating person, and we would not have these movies without her.
All right.
The next name that pops up is Jeremy Latcham. Jeremy Latcham is interesting because he is the producer of this movie, but only has 8 credits on IMDb. And you're like, that's unusual, and it is unusual. However, those 8 movies are Iron Man, Iron Man 2, The Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, Age of Ultron, Spider-Man, Homecoming, and Bad Times at the El Royale. Holy crap. You'd be lucky to have one of those. And by the way, you're counting and you're like, wait a minute, that's only 7. Yeah, because the next movie he's working on is the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
What?
Yeah. So like maybe he's choosy, but like he has a really, really good taste.
Wait, that's an incredible list. What?
Yeah, I know. You'd be lucky to get one of those on yours.
Okay, way to go.
Very nice. And so next, I'm saying we got to move through these because there's so many.
Wait, and just one thing I just want to add in.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we do those co-producers,
yes.
On screen, we've now switched to something that is now starting to resemble something. We see Ivan's hands, and they are working on a circular device, a small circular device of some kind
round?
that has
like a bracelet,
around the size of a bracelet, maybe a little smaller, bigger. It's got wires wrapped around it,
like a piston mount.
It's
like something.
It's looking like something.
Okay, interesting. All right, So let's move into the associate producers. We have Karen Johnson. She is now Karen Gilchrist. I hope the marriage is going well. So the 2 names there are, and then Eric Heffernan. These are people who have come up with John. So basically, Karen Johnson was Jon Favreau's former personal assistant, then became his assistant, and now is an associate producer on his projects, including being a co-executive producer on a little show called The Mandalorian.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's the way it works in Hollywood. Is like you find somebody you work with and you trust and you like, and you help them move up along with you because of it. So Eric Heffernan is actually the first assistant director, even though he's accredited as associate producer, which means he's basically Jon Favreau's right hand on the set. So the person who does quiet on the set, that's the first AD. So like he's doing everything that John isn't doing. And so those are the ones that are really like have to know where everything is and what's going on constantly on the set. So those are some of the hardest working people on the set.
It's not surprising that those hardest working people are sharing the screen with a beloved character of this movie.
That's right. There she is. There's our girl. There's Arena. Being here portrayed by Elvis. Getting a quick drink of water from a goblet.
We're at minute 5. The number's at 4.
Yep.
4 sighting. That's amazing.
So many birds.
It's incredible.
The next name that pops up is Janik Sears. That is the visual effects supervisor. Also in this movie is actually the second assistant director. So whatever Eric Heffernan is not doing, Janik is doing. It turns out he didn't really like the second assisting job because he went back to his main job, which is being a visual effects supervisor. But let's see. He's got 61 credits, including a little film you might have heard of called The Matrix.
Oh, geez.
So, yeah, he knows his stuff.
That's awesome.
So if we have any... I'd say all the criticism I have in this movie, none of them about the visual effects. So, way to go, Janik. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm probably not because I'm terrible at pronunciation. The next name that pops up is Mary Zofris. She has 45 credits on IMDb, and she actually does a ton of work with the Coen brothers. They picked her up on Fargo and have never let her go. And she recently got nominated for an Oscar for The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Oh, have not heard of that.
Yeah. Oh, really? It was a Netflix original.
Oh, okay. That
was the Coen brothers who did a bunch of cowboy stories all together. Buster Scruggs is played by a veteran of the Incredible Hulk, actually.
Oh, who's that?
You'll have to go and find
I'll
out.
have to. All right. There's got to be homework then. All right. Well, there you go.
Because he actually, he plays Buster Scruggs himself.
Oh, okay.
So, however, I would not say Ballad of Buster Scruggs is a several stories together. Not all of them are super pleasant or happy. So going with a different I'm going to sit down with my popcorn and my kid and have a good old time.
Like to escape the misery of the world.
Actually, there's some misery in there because it turns out the Wild West wasn't really good for everybody.
It was not.
Yeah, but it's the Coen brothers, so it always has a nice spark and feel to it. So the next name that pops up is Dan Liebenthal and Richard Pearson. Those are the guys who do the editing here. Dan has worked with John on a ton of things and would go on to do the movies known as Spider-Man. So once again, wonderful editing thing. And if you want to actually hear him talk about his work, he was just on an episode of the Rough Cut podcast. So look for that. Let's see. Richard Pearson did a little movie that I really enjoyed called The Rundown, starring Dwayne Johnson, back when he was first starting out as an
that's
actor.
one of his early. Yeah, his early
That's
ones,
right. And then that's right. And then so now going to the other end of his career, Richard Pearson recently completed his work on Wonder Woman 84.
Oh.
So let's see. Next name on the list is J. Michael Riva. So he is an Oscar nominee and an Emmy winner. He basically, if you liked any of the visual look of the films of the 80s, it was because of him. Because he did Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, The Goonies, Lethal Weapon, and Scrooged, to name just 4.
Wow.
Yeah. So like the aesthetic of all of the 80s, that was all because of J. Michael Riva.
Oh, he's working with Bill Murray, and I mean that's okay.
Exactly. He met Jon Favreau while they were doing Zathura, and sadly, his final film was Django Unchained because he passed away in June of 2012.
Oh,
but left a massive legacy that we are still enjoying today.
Oh, absolutely. Just a note too, as his name appears so far, all while these names are appearing, it's just again more montage of Ivan working on stuff. But when we get to J. Michael Riva's name, it does now clip to another article clipping on the wall. This is obviously from some newspaper, and it says Iron Man stabilizes East-West relations.
Which, how?
Which
is
amazing.
A story I really like to read.
Now this, and I don't think this is East-West Chicago. I think these are East-West relations global. Take your pick. But again, this is also foreshadowing a discussion that will happen early in the movie about what Iron Man has been doing during this time once people know who he is.
Yeah, and maybe I should contact the author of that article to find out how he stabilized these relations, because it's written by a Mr. Rob Down.
Yeah, that is,
who clearly is just a nod to Mr. Robert Downey Jr. Thought that was a fun little thing that the graphics department came up with.
Oh, you know what's funny? That's hilarious, because I looked at that and I went, because every time I see stuff like this, when we mentioned this in an earlier minute about the blueprints and stuff, I always think, like, if you're a designer, this is when the inconsequential stuff happens like that, you throw in names of your friends or your relatives.
Oh, sure, right?
But yeah, I guess you're right. That is Rob.
Yeah. Rob Down. Next name tops up is Matthew Libatique. I'm hoping that's the way you pronounce it, because it's super fun to say. Yes. He is the director of photography, or sometimes known as the cinematographer. If you watch any of the behind the scenes stuff, you will see him, because not only is he handsome, but he also has a very Brian Grazer-esque hairstyle. He has these his black hair is up in these really high spikes. He's all over the place in the behind the scenes stuff, because he's the DOP. So every time they're going to do anything with the camera, he's your guy. He actually has done a ton of work with Mr. Darren Aronofsky, so you know that he knows his stuff. Those are very, very visual movies. He recently shot A Star is Born, Venom, and Birds of Prey.
Oh.
So he has a very, very distinctive visual style. And if you're wondering, ASC stands for the American Society of Cinematographers. And Rob, I think we're now to the point where we figured out what this round thing that Ivan is making actually is.
So it's lighting up. He's applying liquid to it. It's got more. It's an arc reactor. He's made an arc reactor.
It's an arc reactor. He made an arc reactor.
Just in a matter of 2.5 minutes.
Or probably actually more like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, that's about true.
Yeah. Okay, so the next name that pops up is Alan Fine. Alan Fine is the Marvel. He's a Marvel producer, but he's like Marvel producer to the extreme, because his name is attached to almost all of their TV projects, either live or animated, like Netflix, ABC, Fox, the web. Whenever they're doing a Marvel project, he is producing it. So much so that he actually even produced the Marvel Phineas and Ferb crossover.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Let's see. A name you might recognize is Stan Lee. Excelsior. Exactly. I don't think we need to go into Stan Lee, because we all know and love Stan Lee. Rest in peace. David Maisel also produced a little film you might have heard of, Rob. It was called The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. I have heard of it.
He did both Angry Birds movies.
Oh. There was a second? I did.
Yeah, there was a second. Actually, and I was invited to watch it by my youngest daughter, and I saw it. Let's move on to Dennis L. Stewart, who is usually a first assistant director, but here he is a producer. One thing I thought interesting, I always loved digging through people's IMDb and finding something. He was an assistant director on Fair Game, which is the Cindy Crawford action movie, which, if you have not seen that movie... So anyone who says Iron Man 2 is a terrible movie needs to see Fair Game, the Cindy Crawford action movie, because, wow, it's hard to describe the amount of time and money that was spent on that movie, and to have it fail on such a level. I cannot even convey to you how terrible this movie is and how many people must have worked so hard on it. It's astoundingly bad. Yeah. If only the MST3K guys were allowed to be let loose on that. Oof.
Wait, when did that movie come out?
No, it was in the mid-90s, 91?
95.
Oh, 95. Okay, much later. Yeah, 95. Yeah. I'm telling you, there's a whole
William
squad.
Baldwin.
Yes, with William Baldwin.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the lesser Baldwins. There's a whole series of movies from the 90s that I feel like that seems to be the recurring theme here in Iron Man 2 that gets shout out. But yeah, like that it is a splash of cold water on a hot day kind of
that's a movie that's one of those 90s movies you can forget about.
Yes.
All right.
I wish I could. The next name is another. Okay, so if there's a holy trinity of the MCU, then this man's name should be right next to it, and that's Louis D'Esposito. He has produced every movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is the Brian Grazer to the Ron Howard of Kevin Feige. Yes, that's 2 Brian Grazer references. There's not going to be a third because I can't think of what it would be. But anytime you ever see his stuff, he is also known as a very distinctive look to him, so you can always spot him in all the groups. But he is usually, when there's any big wigs gathered, Louis D'Esposito is there. Susan Downey is named right there. You might recognize that last name because, yes, indeed, she is Robert Downey Jr.'s wife. She co-produces almost all of his projects. Nice. Kevin Feige, again, enough said. Like we've talked a lot about Kevin Feige in the past and will in the future. He is the architect, and he is still going strong. And it turns out that light bulbs scare Irina, because the next thing we see him mess with power. So what I get from this is that since has his arc reactor that he's creating and he has to start it up, you need power to make power, so that he has to like sort of kickstart. So I think that's what the whole adding in the power, and then like the lights flicker and go, like you have to like it, and then once it becomes self-sustaining once it goes off. I think because didn't they have to charge it up in the first one? Wasn't that part of the
right? Well, okay,
you need a car battery to originally get it sort of going.
Right. There was a part of that. Now, between these names, when you go to the executive producers, right, as those names come up, and Favreau's in there as well, too, we see him turn on what looks like the top of some sort of gas tank, and a glowing gas starts to come vertically out, and you can see it come through the hose.
Yes.
This is what we were referring to at the show opening. I don't know what that is.
Clearly not sodium, because it's not yellow.
It's because it's blue.
And it's not neon because it's not red. See, I was listening, Rob.
Oh, you were? Wow. Well, nicely done.
It's not mercury.
Well, it's not, and I don't think it's argon because it's noble gas. It's the third most abundant gas in Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't seem like a big deal. Like,
maybe it's the gaseous form of unobtainium.
Well, anyway, whatever it is, it does the trick, because as soon as he goes in and puts that forward and he clicks a switch, and then boom, there's a power surge, blows out some light bulbs, the bird gets scared, and then
poor Irina.
I know, she'll be okay,
bird,
I think. And as we can see now, he's got it goes right then to the next name that you're about to get to. There is what we absolutely can see as an arc reactor, and it is sitting on a table, and it is under its own power.
There it is. He's got an arc reactor, and things have changed in the MCU.
Now, don't you say at that moment, I said to myself, now here's where I can be critical of this movie. And this is not my most critical moment. That comes later. But I will just say I sat there and said, well, gee, Ivan, too bad you weren't this motivated before your dad died. I mean...
True.
Like, what's the difference? You had the blueprints this whole time. Like, that's dude, right. Really? Seriously.
It's that, I don't know, I guess I see. I feel like I have to defend this now too. But there is a thing out there where once it's the 4-minute mile. So okay, here's I'm going to do a couple of digressions here. Okay, nice, so Stephen King wrote about this in one of his stories, and so I've always like kept this in my head. Back in like the 1930s, and I would say this is off the top of my head, so I don't have all the proper names and dates and things. But he said like the 1930s, scientists proved no one could ever run a 4-minute mile. They did all the measurements of like what the maximum length of a human leg is, what the muscle is, what the fasting. Like they said, like it's just physically impossible. Like the human body cannot run that fast. And then someone did. They at the Olympics, they ran the 4-minute mile and beat it, and like everyone's like, "What? That's really impossible." And then from then, now everybody does it. Like that's like a common thing. It's like if you're any kind of runner, you can beat the 4-minute mile if you know with training and professionalism. But why? Like what changed for then? And it was because someone did it. Now everyone can do it.
Right.
It's that thing of like once like you can see it happen. It's the same way in video games. I can't beat that guy. I can't beat that guy. You watch someone beat that guy and you go, oh, all right, then you can just do it. Well, you could have done it before. Your skills haven't changed, but you saw it happen.
The power of the mind.
Power of the mind. Yeah, exactly. It's like mind over physical. And it's that thing of once it's established that the universe will allow something to happen, then other people can recreate that thing. And we have the arc reactor. It's someone recreated the thing. But the name that pops up here is actually Justin Theroux. And you're like, wait a minute. Justin Theroux? Like, yeah, the actor Justin Theroux, known for Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion. I know him from Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. Perhaps you saw him in a small independent film called Star Wars The Last Jedi. He actually is predominantly known for television because he was on 6 Feet Under, he was on Sex and the City, Parks and Rec for a while, and he was the star, I would say, the lead of The Leftovers, Damon Lindelof's show on HBO. So you're like, why the heck is that guy, who, by the way, is goddamn handsome? Why? Come on. Why is he writing this movie? Well, he's writing it because of a little film called Tropic Thunder, because he wrote Tropic Thunder and was also appeared in the movie, and like RDJ thought he was fantastic, and like they're like figuring out how they want to do Iron Man 2, and he's like, I just met this kid when I was off in Hawaii shooting this movie, and so they brought him in, and so he is the sole credited screen. There's 4 screenwriters on Iron Man, and from what we're told, there probably should be more. Right. But he is the sole credited writer of this movie. He is not really predominantly known as a writer. He wrote Tropic Thunder, obviously. He wrote Rock of Ages, and he wrote Zoolander 2, which I think he would probably agree he would not want to have on his tombstone. No. They brought it, and it wasn't just one of those like, hey, we're going to sit in a room for a couple weeks, we're going to bang this thing out, you go write it, and off we go. No. Justin Theroux was then brought onto the set and had to rewrite the movie every day. Like, he would have to be like writing new scenes and handing them out to the people to do later on. And we're going to get into how insane that got later on. But to say that this movie was written under the gun and as they were shooting is an understatement. So, but I give him credit. Like, he showed up, like, you know, like he actually was a working actor and didn't have to, but like he was there every day, you know, banging out the pages to make sure they had something to shoot for the next day. So Justin Theroux, we're going to talk about him a lot as the thing goes by.
Again, and as you know, like a lot of industries, you don't want to know how the sausage is actually made.
Right.
This does really happen.
I think sometimes. That's the title of the making of for this. We don't want to know how the sausage gets made.
Because you know why? Because there might be a few boids in the sausage. Anyway. Now, I should just notice this though. If somebody's listening to this and saying, "Wait, Justin Theroux, okay, like I'm just trying to place him," and you said Last Jedi,
I did,
and they go, "What? What role does he have in Last Jedi?"
Go ahead, tell him.
Well, he's the. Well, I don't want to say it's the. Okay, when they go to the casino planet, he's the gambler in the white jacket who they think they're after, but it's never really determined. Is that the guy they were after?
It's supposed. I think that's the impression I got, is that's the guy they were supposed to meet up with, because he has the flower and, you know, like all that stuff. So he basically, in that, he's just playing suave debonair, like, hey, like, I'm the master hacker. How are you? But then they end up with, you know, another character
who's great and I love.
Are we thinking of the same one?
We are. And there's many lines. That's for another podcast someday. We will talk about that, sir.
All right. As the credits move on, and we move on from Star Wars, which is very difficult for us to do, we come to the maestro himself, directed by Mr. Jon Favreau.
And I love the placement of this. Again, you know,
that's one of the perks of being a director. You get to choose where your name shows up.
Well, okay, because here's what I love about this. It's so we just said the arc reactor's lit up, it's powered, and there's this wonderful shot. It goes to facing in front of Mickey Rourke, playing the character of Ivan, and he starts to smile, and he's just like, I did it right. And then it cuts to this wonderfully lit side shot, profile shot of him, and he's just got this really genuine smile. I mean, it's almost unnerving, because here he is in this dark space. You can see all the metals in his teeth. He's grimy and everything, but the smile is so genuine. And just as that lights up, he just lights up with it. Directed by Jon Favreau.
Yeah,
which I just think, okay, that's the mental message that delivers is awesome. Like, look, I love what I'm doing here. Like this, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the light of the screen on his face, in this case, the arc reactor on his face. Yeah. And we go from that, we smash to the title, ladies and gentlemen, Iron Man 2, with a big clonk.
And that's the end of the minute.
That's the end of the minute and the end of the title sequence.
Now, so, I'd really go ahead.
Let's reflect on these 5 minutes. So I gotta say, like, at this point, I'm on board. Like, we see, we don't know what his history is at this point, but we see this guy, he's got beef with Tony. We don't know why, but he did what no one else in the world could do.
Right.
Even what all the scientists and everyone who were working for Obadiah Stane could not do. Tony Stark did this in a cave. He has done so. He has created the arc reactor. Basically has a grudge to settle, and he's on the warpath. We know these two are going to come to collide, and okay, let's see where this goes. Like, I'm legitimately excited by this point. Like I said, I've had the little quibbles on it, but at this point, yeah, all right, let's see where we go from here.
Here's what's great about this in terms of 5 minutes. You have first of all, you've gotten connection to the character that you know and you've already grown to love, which is Iron Man. You know that his story has progressed. You're introduced to a new character. You understand his pain. You understand who he is and what he knows. You understand his motivation, which we have talked about. Sometimes motivation isn't always clear cut.
Yeah.
This motivation is absolutely clear cut. It has been telegraphed to the viewer, and we are 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It is a really good way to start this movie. To not start with, hey, it's Tony Stark. He's Iron Man. He's flying around. To start out with this, what we would not expect, which is a grimy room somewhere in the poor part of Moscow. They'd be like, "Oh, okay, this is." I thought we were going for the Iron Man sequel. Where is this? So
you've had a character's death,
right?
You've had a clearly a well cared for cockatoo.
Yeah. What's with the bird? We'll be asking for the next 100 minutes.
No, I really like this. I love this opening. I'm looking forward to more.
Mm-hmm. I hope you are too, because we will be here to continue on our journey, because we're about to meet the title character in the next minute. How about that? In the meantime, if you want to talk more about what we've seen, we have a little place on Facebook. That's right. We're not just posting like other people do. No, we have a special group we've established. It's called the Marvel Movie Minute and Next Real Film Podcast Executive Lounge. I have not said that in a while, and I'm actually surprised I got all the words out.
It really did. No, you did that well, because I know that's a tough thing to say.
Yeah, it is. But it's not hard to find, because but it's not that hard to find, because you go to facebook.com/group/thenextreel and you'll find it. We ask for you to ask for admission, because we're trying to keep out the bots and the weirdos. Everybody else is welcome.
Though Russians are allowed now.
Russians are allowed now.
I don't know if we've ever not allowed Russians. I misspoke.
Wait, were we discriminating against Russians?
No, we were not. I'm just
discriminating against bots. We have a real problem with bots, as Facebook does, because Facebook is terrible. But our group is fantastic, and we guarantee to make your time on Facebook 5% better.
And it's not minimum 5%.
Minimum 5%. I would start from 5%.
And you can feel safe there, because you can ask questions. You can talk about things that you want to talk about. We
get very Discord. We have intelligent conversations on. The Facebook group we get pretty silly on.
Oh yeah, Facebook. Oh no, that's why you have the two different places.
Yeah, what I've really been enjoying is memes, Marvel memes. Facebook's a great place for those.
There you go.
So that gives you something to do while you're waiting for the next thing to come around. So as we get to minute number 6 and we meet our title character. So thank you all for listening. We will see you here for minute 6. Enough said.
Bye.